Hey guys, Torsar here, back talking more sports. It's Sunday, October 29th, 2023. Some good football going on right now. Some pretty important news. I think I heard Kirk Cousins may have torn his Achilles. That's pretty crappy for him. He was playing for a new contract. Now he's made 230 mil in his career, so no one's going to be feeling sorry for the guy. But it was his last chance to get a really good contract that's going to be kind of hindered now. And whatever teams were maybe planning on taking a look at him, like San Francisco was rumored, the Jets rumored, whether they were or not, that's now the door shut on that. As far as the Vikings maybe wanting to unload him to get something for a player who may not re sign with him next year. So that's kind of unfortunate. Like Kirk Cousins, he's always been a good guy. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to talk about the James Harden situation. Now, before I do get started with that, I'm trying to introduce some new segments, just like a lot of regular TV shows would. Today, I think the easiest thing to do, I'm just going to do some trivia. Now, try not to cheat, guys, because I'm going to have the answer near the end, just for the people who want to do it, fair and square and stick around. If you just want to look up the answer, you already know it, and you don't want to stick around for the whole video, that's fine. As always, if you're here, even listening to this right now, thank you so much. Whether you want to leave a like, whether I've earned your subscription or not, that's fine. But just going to test that out today. So, the trivia is where or what city did the Golden State Warriors originally come from? Don't cheat. Now, who else is sick of James Harden? I mean, let's face it, these player things usually aren't, the players wanting to get out and force their way out. They're usually not a very good thing. Sometimes they're brief, like the guy who I'm going to credit with actually starting it. And some of you may already be thinking of someone and know you are wrong. So we'll get to that. Now, the person who really could have started it was Michael Jordan, right? But he decided to be, a man about it, stick to his word, and he promised, I'm not going to play for another coach other than Phil Jackson. And the Bulls called his bluff, and he was not bluffing. And we all know, most people saw The Last Dance. We all know how that ended up. Unfortunate. But he probably could have started this new era of player empowerment, because he was still kind of from that old school where it was the teams who put super teams together. It was the teams who made all the decisions, and even the most popular stars in the league kind of had to toe the line. And if anyone saw the movie Air, if you haven't, I would highly recommend it. Very good movie. Excellent movie. But he started it, you saw, if you watched that movie, he started the movement with basketball. The biggest stars were still wearing the company's shoes, not the company making a shoe for the biggest star. So the guy who I would actually credit with really starting this, because he was very intelligent and probably realized that Jordan could have, is Kobe Bryant. Now many of you are gonna go, Kobe, but I've put him up on this pedestal way up here. That's fine. Okay? You can put Kobe up on a pedestal. God bless him, R.I.P. I love Kobe too. But I think a lot of people, and the name I was going to say that I think a lot of people would credit for it is LeBron James. And that is completely wrong. LeBron James didn't even want to talk about it. He got asked about his pending free agency for over 2 years before it ever even happened. And eventually had to stop answering questions about it. And then I never really blamed him for the decision. I didn't think it was that bad. God forbid the man thought that everyone else thought that was important after getting asked about it for 2 years. Wouldn't you get the impression that people kind of cared what you were going to do? And I loved it. I remember I was at work at the time at a grocery store, and he made the decision, and I got over the intercom on the entire grocery store and was like, "Attention shoppers, LeBron James to Miami, LeBron James to Miami." It was great. But, that created more of the player empowerment of, players can talk behind the scenes and get together. But LeBron James never forced his way out of Cleveland, and he didn't force his way to Miami. He waited till he was a free agent, and he made a decision. He did it the right way. Now, you can criticize the decision if you want. That's opinion based, whether you thought it was cringy or not. So I'm just going to go down the line because not all these I came up a list with some guys. If I've forgotten one that's really obvious, just, let me know in the comments. This was just a list I came up with because each one of these throughout history of these superstar top tier players, they have all been different, right? So here I have Kobe Bryant. I already talked about that. If you remember correctly, he threatened to leave LA. It demanded a trade if they didn't get him more help. This was after Shaq had left and they had 3 bad years. It was going into that off season after the third. They missed the playoffs one year and were the 7th seed 2 other years. That's unacceptable. So, and this is a reason why when people want to just throw him so willy-nilly into their top 10, I'm like, that was during the prime of his career. I don't care if he had me and 3 other guys on the court with him. A prime Kobe Bryant should never miss the playoffs, or a top 10 player in his prime should never miss the playoffs, and or shouldn't even get the 7th seed. That's just all the other top players ever. That would have never happened to them. But anyway, I've talked about in other videos if you're interested in it. I'm sure it's somewhere on my channel. But anyway, that didn't come to it. We all know they got him Pau Gasol. They got him Lamar Odom. And the rest is history. So, another one. And this one was different. Kevin Garnett. Now, he had to be coerced into it. He didn't want to leave Minnesota. And this is also, I'll get to another guy who finally ended up on another team this year. I'm sure you'll be able to guess who I'm talking about. But these were guys who had to keep being coerced into it and finally gave in because they're like, all right, well, I'm on the last few years of my prime. I only have so much more time to win a championship. And once the Celtics made the deal for Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett was finally convinced. And again, the rest is history. They only got 1 championship out of it, and probably no guys have been feasting off that 1 championship more than those guys have, whether you love them or hate them. I love those teams. I thought they were great. Even, the few years after, they were always such a threat. People say, LeBron had no competition in the East. Hello, the big 3 Celtics, Derrick Rose and the Bulls, those strong Indiana Pacers teams with Paul George before he snapped his leg. Who are we talking about? All right, then you have LeBron James. Obviously, I just went over that. He never demanded a trade. He didn't even know if he was, for all you know, he could have stayed in Cleveland. Now, the one who kind of was along the lines of Kevin Garnett, I feel, but he went about it the wrong way because he wasn't patient enough, is Carmelo Anthony. Now, he finally got sick of Denver and, forced his way out of there, and he just did it too early because we all know what happened. The Knicks gutted themselves just to trade for a player that they could have just waited to sign that summer. He was a free agent that summer. And by the time he got to the team, they had nothing left as far as depth. It was a aging Amari Stoudemire whose knees were about to give out, and then they had no picks, no nothing. They could never put anything around Carmelo to have made that worthwhile. That's still one of the more knuckleheaded decisions on both ends, in my opinion, in NBA history. You look back at it and what were they thinking? Another guy, what was he thinking is Kyrie Irving. Wins a championship in Cleveland, the only success he's had before or since, and he forces his way out because he wasn't the number 1 guy. You were playing with the best player in the league. What did you want? You were winning championships. The guy is just now, he's hopefully learned his lesson, and he's really intelligent. So I think, and especially from seeing stuff like this James Harden situation, he probably realized, all right, I'm not that far along in my career yet, but I am probably like right in the middle of my prime, if not on the, getting towards the downhill slope of it. I'm with Luka, another superstar, on a good competitive team with an owner who wants to win and has proven it year after year. He will spend the money on the facility, spend the money on players. Let me chill and give this a shot. And it's funny because now he's on a good team. I know they missed the playoffs last year, but they only had a half year. That those are two very hard players to try to get to, you know, work in together. They'll have a whole year to do it now. I really don't see the Dallas Mavericks again missing the playoffs. I think they will have success this year. Now, the Western Conference is very tough, so we'll see how far that can go and what those two superstars can translate into as far as success goes, but it'll be interesting. And then also Kevin Durant. He's now with the Phoenix Suns on a super team with Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. And they didn't even have to give up too much to get him. So both the guys that apparently James Harden couldn't stand being on the same team with and forced his way out of yet another team, they're now in good situations, and this guy's still in flux. It's just so ironic to me. So hopefully Kyrie's learned his lesson. Another one that's kind of unique, the Kawhi Leonard situation, right? He forced his way out because he was unhappy with the San Antonio medical staff. We'll never know how injured he really is. I mean, he's still doing that thing to this day where I guess he just realizes he's not an 80 game a year player, and that one, it is what it is. Without him, he's not a very verbal guy. Without him coming out and saying exactly what it was, or, hearing from Popovich, it's kind of the same way, kind of behind closed doors kind of guy. We're never going to know what really happened in that situation. And you know what? Kawhi Leonard, he won a championship afterwards, and San Antonio did what you should do in the NBA, which is if you're not good, you should be bad. And now they ended up with one of the best prospects that we've seen in years in Victor Wembanyama. So at the least, the fans have something to look forward to. Now we have Giannis, who this was another one, and there's another current player doing this, and Joel Embiid, where they're kind of dropping subtle hints as to, hey, and this is particularly for Giannis, you could tell he really has a drive for winning because they just won a few years ago. It's not like he's this guy, and Kobe Bryant was the same way. It kind of reminds me of that, where they had just come off a few years before a stretch where they won 3 championships in a row. Most guys could sit back, rest on their laurels, and be like, well, even if I never win another one the rest of my career, I've got 3 under my belt. No. And that's where you can admire Kobe doing what he did. That's where you can admire Giannis doing what he did. Maybe at the time, Kobe Bryant went about it a little bit of the wrong way, and maybe that's something that Giannis learned from. Like I said, it was more, Kobe was just like, boom, hit him in the face. If you guys don't get me more, I'm out. Giannis was more subtle, and Joel Embiid is doing the same thing now. I'll just throw him in here. It doesn't exactly go in order. Most of these, you could tell I was trying to go in order down the line. And then the other one that kind of fits in with Kevin Garnett to me, which that's just took care of, another guy on the list that I had in Giannis was Damian Lillard. He had to be convinced, people, this was like, 4 or 5 years people have been trying to get him to, just go. And finally he caved in this last offseason, and that team, again, good situation. Hopefully, he can do something with it, whether they get a championship this year, next year, 3 years down the road. I mean, he's still, he's on the tail end of his prime, but he's still got a few years left in him, and being a smaller guard, he should be able to translate into go into the later parts of his career more successfully than other guys can. You see Chris Paul is still a very effective player to this day. So that's kind of the history of that. Obviously, James Harden is in there too. But unlike the rest of these guys on this list, James Harden isn't happy just doing it once. Now, when he got out of Houston, you could kind of understand it at the time. They tried, Dwight Howard. It didn't work out. They tried Russell Westbrook. It didn't work out. They had the teams where it was just James Harden and a bunch of role players, where those were probably their most successful teams. Maybe the Chris Paul, when they had Chris Paul too, they tried it with, and that was they probably would have beat the Warriors that year had Chris Paul not got injured, and it wasn't just reliant on James Harden. But anyway, wasn't good enough for Houston. And this is now remember, the Nets were a very good, overachieving, up-and-coming team. They had a lot of good, strong pieces, kind of like the Clippers before Kawhi Leonard and Paul George got there. Very overachieving teams. Now, this is what they traded away. The Nets traded away a pair of promising young players in Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert, as well as 4 first-round picks and 3 pick swaps to acquire Harden. Why? Why did you ever do that? You could have won with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. You had 2 top 10 players, both in the prime, maybe Kevin Durant on the downside and coming off of an injury. But why? Why did you blow up the rest of any sort of depth? You didn't pay anything except for money. You had 2 open max contract slots. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving both joined you for practically nothing but money. You didn't give up any pieces. You didn't give up your future. You didn't give up anything. And then you did it all just to get one more player that you didn't need. And then that's the guy at the time. It looked like, oh, well, Kyrie Irving with all this, COVID stuff, and he's not being allowed to play, and he's just being wishy-washy, and does he even want to play basketball? And everyone thought Harden was just so genius for being the first one to see it and get out of there. Yeah, well, now how does that look? Because like I already talked about, Kyrie's in Dallas, got a good shot. Kevin Durant is in Phoenix, got a really good shot. They're one of the favorites this year. And James Harden is still being a curmudgeon in the team that he forced his way out of Brooklyn to get to. All right, and each time it's lesser and lesser, because now this is what the 76ers gave up to get him. And this shows you the desperation of how much these teams realize we need another superstar, and how desperate they get to make these moves some of the times. Like the one I always think of, I mentioned in my last video, the Dwight Howard to the Los Angeles Lakers the first time. Like, did they ever think that was going to work with Kobe Bryant? I mean, that was just crazy. Desperation at its finest. But anyway, the 76ers traded their problem in Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, a very good rotational player, Andre Drummond, a 2022 first-round pick unprotected, and a 2027 first-round pick which is protected. And they got James Harden and Paul Millsap, which is a decent rotational player too in return. But still, if you look at that now, you just sit there and think, what were you thinking? And what are they going to get back for Harden now? Now who's going to take him? You're not getting back first-round picks, most likely. You'd be lucky to get back Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and maybe like a first-round protected pick like 5 years down the road, or if even that. Where's James Harden going to go now? The 76ers are screwed. No one's going to want him, and you see it's already start to become an issue, because their first game of the year, they lose by 1 point to a fully stacked Milwaukee team. 1 point. Now, maybe if they had lost by 10 or 7 or 8 or whatever, you could say, all right, well, James Harden, he's maybe worth even in not shape, 4 or 5 points or whatever. That wouldn't have been enough. But 1 point, I'm pretty sure that with James Harden in the lineup, they could have figured out a way to score one more point. Now, I know it doesn't exactly translate like that. You can't just say, oh, well, with Harden, they automatically win. But you see where it starts to become an issue. You lose by one with the distraction of Harden. And this is just, the media's gonna, you know how the media is with this stuff, myself included. Whether you want to consider me media or not, that's another story for another day. But anyway, this isn't gonna go away. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. All I know is I'm sick of hearing about it. The guy has gotten way too much attention. He's been a dud of a player his whole career. He's never won anything. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have, Charles Barkley is one of the best players of all time. He never won anything either. Karl Malone, John Stockton, the list goes on. The NBA is filled with great players. But it's more like, baseball, you can go your whole career, not win one, and you'll still be considered for one of the all-time best players. That's just the way baseball is. Football and basketball, you have to win. You will never be up there. Like, look at Steph Curry right now. He's not going to get any better or any worse. So why can he still have a chance to get into the top 10 if you don't think he is yet? Or maybe even into some top 5s, because he could win more championships. Some of these guys that still have a chance to get into the top 10. What if the Phoenix Suns with Kevin Durant winning the next two, win the championship the next 2 years with Kevin Durant getting the MVP, finals MVP both times? He's not going to be a top 10 player? Of course he is. Anyway, I'm sure this saga isn't going to go away. Again, always makes it easy topic for a video. I definitely rambled on far too long in this one. If you've stuck around for the trivia answer, you are awesome. If you guys remember, my question is, what city did the Golden State Warriors originally come from? The answer, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's right. Warriors, come out and play. So that's why they have the name the Warriors. Makes more sense when you think about it, like Golden State Warriors, huh? So they were the Philadelphia Warriors. Yeah, that's it, guys. Till the next one, stay healthy. Peace.